We live in a fast-paced world. This is what we hear, a cliche. It's a rat race. It's a competitive world. And right enough, we do live in a world where there is only competition. Our children are growing in this competitive world. Competition at school, competition in colleges, competition among friends. There is also the technological advancement that they have to face. There is cultural diversity, environmental issues, political issues. Why will they not grow up with a lot of complexities? This is the point in time when parenting becomes of the essence. We have with us today Akshita Milani, who is a child psychologist and has great expertise in parenting. She has done a master's in child psychology from Nottingham University, Trent, in the UK. She works on emotional well-being, a lot of different therapies for children, and as I said, parenting. That is her expertise. Manu Care, she's the co-founder of Manu Care, which focuses on child and adolescent counseling. Today, we're going to focus on child psychology and parenting with Akshita Milani. Akshita, thank you for having come on to Mimamsa Talk and giving us your precious time. I know that you're very busy. You've empowered a lot of families and parents and their children with your counseling.
Thank you so much for having me.
First question is to talk to us and to tell people out there, what is child psychology?
So child psychology is basically the study of emotional, behavioral and development that children go through. And it is to understand children right from infancy to till the time they turn adults.
Okay.
So it focuses on everything right from emotional well-being to behavioral concerns to parenting and all of that. Yeah.
So why has it become so important in today's world?
As you said rightfully, the world is very, very fast moving. We have become very, very technology driven. And today in this world, more than a parent, technology has started becoming a babysitter for the kids.
Absolutely.
And for that, understanding child psychology has become very, very important so that parents know what kind of issues the children might face. When they know the issues that the children are going to face, they are more equipped to deal with them and they are ready to face those challenges more strongly. So, understanding child psychology, I feel like every parent should take a little course on child psychology before they decide to become parents so that they are aware what they're getting themselves into.
All right. This is a wonderful thought that they should, be educated on what is child psychology or parenting, the right kind of parenting. But what of those parents who don't have access to any of this? How would they determine a child's behavioral pattern? How would they come to know?
Come to know what?
How would they determine a child's problem, if there is a problem?
So every child, whenever there is a problem, there are several symptoms that you can see in the child. For example, there will be mood swings, there'll be tantrums, maybe their sleep pattern changes, maybe their appetite has changed, or the way they used to talk to others have changed.
Okay.
They have become very alone, or they have removed themselves from social situations. You see them in low mood. These are a few signs and symptoms that you can see in your children. The style of communication has changed.
All right.
And based on that, parents can understand that, okay, maybe there is a problem. But
right.
A lot of times parents look at problems as, okay, this is a big issue now. What am I going to do? And most of the time the blame goes on the child. The child is problematic. It's all because of the child. And a lot of time parents forget that the child is also a growing human and humans are tend to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
So we should be able to grow with them. We should learn from what is going on. And instead of asking the question of like, okay, what's wrong with the child, we can ask what has happened to the child.
Absolutely.
What has changed in the environment? What has something that has gone wrong in the environment that we can work on? How can I help the child get better? And I think trusting your instinct as the parents is the first thing you do. As a parent, you know when something is wrong, and when you get that instinct, work on it. Don't think of it as like it's just a phase, it will go away. No, when you have that instinct, work on it. Take the first step. Going for therapy or interventions is very, very good step for your mental well-being.
So, since you said that the parent has to become aware, and we are talking about parenting over here, a lot of parents are working,
Right.
and there isn't as much visual over here. What would you say to that, and what would you tell parents over here about being vigilant?
I feel like parents nowadays, it's very, very true. Both parents are working. Our houses are becoming dual income households. Not only that, India is moving towards neutral family setting. So of course, it has become very difficult for parents to spend as much time with the children. There is a shared load of household responsibilities as well.
Yes.
So what I would say is, in these situations, in today's time, quality matters more than quantity. When you're spending time with your child, make sure that you are 100% present. You don't have mobiles in your hands, you don't have TVs, you're focusing only on the child. And even if you give just 15 minutes or half an hour of your day, completely 100% attentive towards the child, I think it's more than enough.
And the child will definitely appreciate that, because he or
definitely,
she does not
yes.
get the parent all along.
It helps them regulate their emotions. It helps them to communicate what they went throughout the day to the parent. So as when we were kids, for any kind of problem, we used to go to our parents first. So parents were our first point of contact. We come home, we tell our mother, how was our day? Then our father comes home, and then we tell our father, okay, what happened throughout the day? He shares his day. But now, because both parents are working, slowly the first point of contact has started becoming internet or friends or society. And parents need to be very, very vigilant about it and make sure that they are becoming the first person
Point of contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for that, like, it's very simple. When the child is reaching home, you can give a call. Just give a call. I understand we cannot be home. Give a call. Talk to the child for 10 minutes. How was your day? How was school? What is going on? Maybe give them a few tasks, what they can do. Tell them what time you're going to be home. Communication is the key. When you talk, when you communicate with the child learns that, okay, my mom tells me everything that went on in her day. So I would want to tell her more on what went through my day.
Lovely.
And the communication that we build as young children, that is what develops in adolescence, and that is what develops as an adult. If as children at home, if the environment was very communication based, if there were a lot of open discussions and open communication, as an adolescent, the child is more born to come to you rather than going to friends with their issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That trust factor,
Yes.
that bonding takes place between the parent and the child.
And it starts with communication. Always starts with communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I know of this because we teach communication, and that is a point in time we speak about these things. Like, you've got to have that transparency with one another when you're communicating.
Yes.
Wonderful. So how does child psychology determine a child's problem?
So when a client comes in for a consultation, we start with a very detailed case history. So we will go point to point, right from prenatal factors to birth complications to postnatal factors to environment at home, and we understand every kind of detail of the child. After that, we do a lot of checklists with the parents, of behavioral checklist, emotional checklist. And after that, we have like a play setting set with the child, depending on the child's age. And in that play, we try to observe what concerns the child might have. And after doing this in 2 to 3 settings, we come up with an individualized plan for the child.
Oh, lovely.
So the therapy plan is always tailored to child. As we always say that our 5 fingers are not
the
same.
same, yes.
So always not not two children are ever going to be same. So every child needs different interventions. Every child needs different therapy plans because they are brought up in different environments. They have different concerns, and that is what we do. So after making the therapy plan, the execution starts. We make sure that we keep the parents updated. We have monthly parent meetings. We have family sessions, family therapy to make sure that we are working on the child holistically. Because I'm just going to be with the child barely for 2 to 3 hours of the week. But parents are home, grandparents are home, teachers are with the students more than I am.
Yes.
So I want to reach out to as many people there are in the child's life to make sure that everyone is working together for the betterment of the child.
Very nice. You spoke of teachers. So if there is a problem with a child, you're tutoring the parent, right?
Yeah.
But are the teachers also then involved? Do you inform the teachers?
If the concern is any kind of behavior in school, or the concern is bullying in school or academic concerns in school, then the school is more involved, then the teachers are more involved. We do inform teachers. We try to set up meetings. Most of the schools nowadays have counselors, so we try to get in touch with the counselor and
Okay.
get that side of the story as well. So we have a person of contact inside the school. So we know what is going on in school as well, because from parents we know what is going on at home. So we need to know what is going on at school as well to make sure that we are on the right track to work on the issues that the child was having. So
This is very extensive.
yeah.
So do most schools have counselors within?
No, right. Right now, the new Right to Education Act in 2019 makes it compulsory for every school to have a school counselor.
Okay.
However, it has not been implemented fully in all the schools. Most of the international schools or high schools will definitely have a counselor, maybe not a full-time counselor, but they have a visiting counselor.
Okay.
But a lot of government schools or a lot of poor socioeconomic background schools don't have a counselor, and that is something I feel like Indian government should come together and work on it. And because I feel like every school needs a school counselor, every school should have like a person of contact who knows what is going on with the children and can be a guide to the children, because at the end of the day, teacher has nearly 30 to 60 students, every teacher has, and the teacher cannot focus on every child. The teacher might identify an issue, but she doesn't have the time to have the intervention to make sure that the child is getting better. So having a person just designated to do that would be very, very helpful. As you said earlier, the world is very, very fast, and it's very fast paced. Everything is changing. So it's very important that we have some person to contact in school, because children spend most of their time in school.
I do hope people listening to this, take some recognition of what you're saying. We've been trying to scream about this for a long, long time. You're making a very, very valid point. And I see the passion that you come with. Yeah. Good, good, very nice. So you talked of interventions.
Yeah.
So what are those interventions that you employ in order to bring in change in a child?
Okay. So as I said before, there are different problems. Every child comes in. So the individualized therapy plan is different for every child. For children who are younger, usually play therapy or art therapy works the best.
Okay.
As you know, children express more through their play and art.
Absolutely.
So that is what we try to do. With children who are teenagers, we usually try to go with REBT or CBT, which are behavioral therapies. So where we work on thought reconstruction. This is usually helpful for children who are going through depression or anxiety. Then we have art therapy for all ages, where we work through issues like fears, phobias, reconstruction of thought, any unhealed traumas. Then we have occupational therapy for children who have special needs, like children with autism or ADHD, to work on their sensory needs.
Okay.
We have remedial education for children with learning disability or children who are falling behind in their studies.
This is a wide spectrum.
Yeah. And we usually, it's a mix of 2 to 3 therapies depending on the child.
All right.
It's very important that you find the root cause. For example, a child might be facing a lot of issues in the school. Like he might be academically falling behind, but the issue might not be that he has learning difficulty. The issue might be maybe there is emotional unavailability at home. Maybe there is no proper communication, and that is getting impacted on the academics are getting impacted because of that.
It could also be peer pressure and bullying, which takes place a lot.
So for that, as I said before, a very, very deep case history and analysis is absolutely required. So based on that, the plan is made. It's usually a mix of 2 to 3 therapies. We, depending on the severity of the problem, we try to meet kids at least 1 to 3 hours a week and move on from there.
Okay. So you must have some kind of psychometric tests, etc., to determine all of this.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
There are a lot of checklists, there are a lot of assessment tools, depending on the issue. If the child is coming with academic difficulties, and if we see that there are no concerns like peer pressure or bullying, rather a concern in learning and understanding, then we take IQ test, we take developmental tests, we take achievement tests and all of that. If the issues seem more behavioral, then we have behavioral checklists, we have ADHD, autism checklists. And usually in the first meet, I try to do at least one ADHD and autism checklist to make sure, to make sure that I'm not missing out the signs of those.
Oh, wonderful. Really, really nice. What is psychotherapy? All these things involve that.
Yes.
Right? And we use all of it.
Yes. Psychotherapy, every therapy that I told you right now, they're all psychotherapies. And they all, as I said, they're always a combination of those therapies to work with the children. Yes.
Wonderful. So we're talking about parenting, right? And that we've got to educate the parents. And then you said teachers also in schools, you contact them. What about the siblings in the house? Are they also tutored as to how to behave? Say, there are 3 kids in the house and there is one who's facing issues, behavioral patterns, or is a problem child or whatever. The parent is educated, but what about the 2 kids, the other 2 siblings? Are they also tutored? Do they also have to go through therapy, like a family therapy?
Yeah, we try to get at least one session of family therapy in a month or 2, where the parents come in with the siblings. This helps strengthen the bond between the family. It gives them a neutral place to express their emotions freely and channelize open communication and talk to each other about how they're feeling. Family therapy is the best way to heal from any kind of issues, traumas, or any behavioral concerns that you're dealing with. Because a lot of times people think that, okay, why is he behaving in a certain way? Why is she behaving in a certain way? We don't look at it as it is a way of communicating for the child.
Absolutely.
The child cannot communicate with words. When we are upset, we say, I'm upset. Right? But in our actions also it can be seen.
Of course,
we might,
body language.
We might stomp our feet, or, we might close the door very loudly. As kids, they also don't know how to say what they're feeling. So usually it comes out through behavior, maybe tantrum throwing, or maybe throwing things, or just crying. So we need to, again, as I said before, we need to dig deeper into it and understand what is going on.
What is going on? The root cause analysis is so important.
Yes,
it's all forms of attention seeking. Yes. So we have different parenting styles, if I'm not mistaken, 4 large parenting styles. Could you elaborate on that and tell us, at this time, with the way the world is today, which is the best parenting style to be used?
Okay, so there are 4 parenting style, as you correctly said. First is authoritative parenting style.
Yes.
It is known to be the best parenting style out there. This is a mixture of where the parent has high expectations from the child, but at the same time also gives they are very responsive, they give very high warmth to the child. There are set boundaries in the household. Rules are explained to the child rather than imposed on the child. And every decision that is made in the household is done together. So no decisions are imposed on the kids as such. Due to this, children grow up to be more well-adjusted adults. They have higher resilience, higher self-esteem. They are academically more successful. This is the best parenting style out there. And this should usually be the primary parenting style for any parent. The second parenting style is authoritarian parenting style.
Okay.
which is a little opposite to that, where there is high expectation but low warmth given to the child.
Okay.
So rules are never explained; they are very, very imposed.
Do this because I said so.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Boundaries are very, very clear. The child doesn't have any space for communication. Decisions are already made. And this leads to children feeling little suffocated, higher chance of rebellion as a
Absolutely.
teenager or a
Yes.
young
Yeah,
adult.
yeah, yeah.
And they might succeed academically, they might do very well, but they have a lot of issues in emotional regulation, understanding themselves, questions in self-esteem. The punishments are also a little bit harsh in authoritarian parenting style. In authoritative parenting style, parents usually try to, use behavior modification technique like positive reinforcement and communication rather than hitting the children or scolding them very, very loudly. But in authoritarian parenting style, parent usually ends up scolding or hitting the child.
Yes.
Yeah, so that also leads to a lot of issues as an
Yes,
adult.
absolutely.
This is not a suggested parenting style. However, you will have to use it in some situations where it
Sometimes.
is emergency or where the child really needs it. If the situation has gone very, very bad, there is an emergency and you need to set a certain boundary or a rule, definitely you can use this parenting style.
But then there's a very thin line of demarcation over this. How the hell and when am I going to use this? All right.
Yes.
Yeah, and which is the third one?
Third parenting style is permissive parenting style, where there is a low expectation and high warmth given. The child has all the freedom in the world. There are no set rules, no boundaries. The parent gives in to everything that the child asks for. So there is a higher chance of instant gratification, where whatever the child asks, it's given. Because of that, the children usually grow up to become very
Selfish?
yeah, very selfish. They don't know how to respect authority. They don't know how to adjust to rules. They cannot take no for an answer. We can call like they sometimes also become entitled in a sense.
Absolutely.
Again, as I said, as authoritarian parenting style, this parenting style is also not advised.
They're
However, you
completely
can
pampered.
Yes.
So it's spoiled.
Yes,
The child is spoiled.
Absolutely, yes. But you can use it in small, small doses when the child really needs some emotional support from you. And the fourth style is neglectful, where there are no expectations from the child, no high expectations from the child, and there is low warmth as well. So basically, the child is left to raise themselves. And the parent is either very busy or emotionally unavailable. Of course, there are no discussions, no open communication. Complete, as the name says, it's absolutely neglectful. This parenting style we do not suggest at all. They should not be used in any method, any sense, no matter how the situation goes or where the situation leads you to. As I said again, like to combine all of that, what we were saying, authoritative parenting style is the best parenting style you can move forward with. It should be your primary parenting style. You can combine it with authoritative and permissive parenting style as and when needed. As I said, parenting is not one size fit all situation. So as we discussed before that every child is different, in a similar way, the parenting style also needs to change based on the child's personality and the situation.
Lovely. What happens if a parent himself or herself has a disorder? Like you have a lot of parents who are narcissistic by nature. They have that disorder. Some of them are bipolar by nature. So what happens then?
So if a parent has been raised with dysfunctional behaviors or has unresolved childhood trauma, they carry it into their lives and unintentionally use the same parenting style or the same parenting methods into their children's life. As you said, parents who have NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, or bipolar personality disorder, tend to shift between moods, and sometimes they become very, very included and very, very present in the children's life, and sometimes they're completely away from it. Most of the times they're very strict, they get upset very quickly. So it really hampers the child and their growth and their development. Parents who have disorders like depression or anxiety or stress, that also impacts the child greatly because there is emotional unavailability, and because of that, the development is stunted in a lot of ways. So I feel like as a parent, if you're realizing that there are issues that you need to work through, maybe childhood trauma or depression or anxiety, you definitely should go out, and seeking help is very, very important. Healing yourself from past trauma and breaking the cycle of trauma and becoming a better person is the best gift you can give to your children.
I know, but even if you hear a narcissistic personality disorder, it becomes so difficult for the person
Yeah.
to accept that he or she is
definitely.
so. Even bipolar,
Yeah.
then how can you bring that change? It's not easy.
It is definitely not easy. It always starts with awareness. The parent needs to, at times, make sure that, because, see, I feel like if you're bringing new life into the world, you're responsible for that life.
True.
If you're feeling like your behavior in certain ways is impacting the child negatively, it is very important for parents to introspect, to sit with themselves and understand if there is anything wrong. And sometimes maybe there is nothing wrong. Maybe there are only issues in communication, because parenting doesn't come with a guide.
True.
You don't know how the child is
Yeah.
going to be, what situations are going to come up. So that's why we are here. That's why you can come to us, have a conversation. Maybe as a child psychologist, while talking to you, I'll be able to identify if there are
Yes.
any concerns or symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder or bipolar. And through that also, maybe I can help the parent in a certain different way, rather than them being on themselves. So as I
Yes.
said before, it's really just going out and seeking help. If you seek help, and if you like, just go out to see, like, okay, how can I be a better parent? Even if you think about that, then that would definitely help resolve a lot of issues that you have as a parent.
You're saying such, the information that you're actually giving is so valid. How can I be a better parent? And I hope people who are listening, make an effort to do just that. Today you have, because of whatever is happening around the world, as we stated right in the beginning, you also have something called problem child.
Yeah.
You needn't have a particular disorder per se. So what is a problem child?
So first of all, I'm really sorry, but I don't think we should call any child a problem child, of the entire blame and the entire situation onto the child.
Yes.
And by labeling them as a problem, the child faces a lot of emotional difficulties and is born to have more behavioral concerns. So when we say a problem child, I would rather you say that, okay, a child with problems, or a child who has some concerns. And again, as I said before, the parent needs to ask what is going wrong in the surrounding, what is going wrong in the environment. Are there any changes in the school? Are there any changes at home? Are friends influencing him? What is he watching? What is going on online? What is going on at home? What are the grandparents or the extended family talking about? They need to look and search everywhere to gather information, to understand what exactly, where is it coming from? Where is the problem coming from? So as I said before as well, we are all humans. The child is human as well, and we are all born to make mistakes. We are going to have some or the other situations, problems in our life. But the more we make it as a problem child, the more we are putting the entire blame on the child, and that completely stops their development and their growth, because we've told them, acha, he's
You
a
are this.
problem child.
You've labeled him.
They are problem child. So everyone starts treating them differently as well,
Yes.
because then everyone feels like, okay, they are the ones who will create nuisance. They are the one who will create problems, and that's why people look at them differently.
Yeah.
So it's always best if you don't address someone as a problem child. I would rather that you understand what is the root cause of that problem, sit with them, sit with your family, discuss it, and maybe we will really know what the problem is and we can work on it.
Wonderful.
And as
Wonderful.
as a family we can grow
Yes,
together.
wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. You've worked with so many parents and very many children. What is it from your experience that you may have found
among our Indian parents, what is the major problem in parenting? Do they have that?
In today's generation, I would say that the major problem in parenting would be the addition of technology.
Okay.
Right now, the technology has become very, very influential in our life. Before this, if anybody wanted any parenting advice, they would usually go to their parents, their family members. But now everyone Googles it, finds what is online. So it has become like a huge conflict where the parent doesn't know, okay, what exactly, how should I parent?
Yes.
What is my parenting style?
Yes.
What kind of behavioral methods should I use? So there is always a confusion there. Then I feel like in today's generation, parents are trying to be a friend of the child rather than being a guide of the child.
This is something I've noticed. Yeah.
So I mean, you are a responsible adult in the child's life, and by being a friend, you are not able to reinforce boundaries and rules, because friends don't have rules or boundaries.
yes.
They have open communication, they can do whatever they want, but as a guide, as a parent, you need to have certain set of rules, you need boundaries. For that, you are like a guide to your child. So be a guide rather than being a friend. Another situation that we can see, as I said before as well, we are moving towards nuclear families. The involvement of family is reducing. And if the family involvement has not reduced, then there are times when grandparents try to overlook the boundaries or the rules set by the parents. And this sets a very wrong example for the child, because then the child realizes, if my parents are saying no, then I can definitely go to my grandparents and they will give in to my demands.
They will give in to your demands. So that's a major difference from yesteryear's parenting and today's parenting.
Yes, definitely. Before this,
Sorry.
we were, the fathers were more into provider role and the mothers were more into caregiving role. But now the roles have completely shifted. Like the child of the care of the child was completely
The mother's
on the mother.
responsibility.
Yeah, it was mother's responsibility, but now fathers are more involved. They share the complete load as both of them are working. And as we were discussing parenting styles in past generations, authoritarian parenting style where the parent just imposes rules on the child was very, very common. Now parents are trying to be more open, talk more, communicate more. So yes, there are plus and minus in every generation as we move forward in parenting. But what I feel is, at the end of the day, our goal is to have a child who's well-adjusted adult, who has very good emotional well-being, they're well settled, they are happy, and that is our end goal. So whatever works, we need to go.
So what would you tell our parents over there, young ones, who are going to become parents? What would your piece of advice be to them?
As I said before as well, quality matters over quantity. Spend quality time with your children. Set clear rules. When you're setting a rule, explain the reason, explain the why behind the rule, the certain set rule. So for example, if parents set up a rule that, you cannot have a boyfriend or a girlfriend until you're 16 or 18. Why is that rule in place? Why are you making that rule? Explaining the why is very important.
Very important, yes.
Then I would say that you are role models for your children. So children do not learn when you say that do something. You'll have to do it yourself. They will learn from your behavior. So exhibit the behavior you would want to see in your children.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be more present, give quality time. When you're giving time, make sure that technology is not involved. Don't use technology as a pacifier for your child. I would really want that parents have more human interactions rather than giving phone or TV or something like that.
That
for
would
watching.
2-year-olds sometimes,
Yes, yes. I've seen nowadays parents who put up some songs of Coco Melon or anything else, and they're feeding the child. So the child is not recognizing the taste of the food. He's not recognizing, he or she's not recognizing the mother's hands, how the mother is feeding, and they're not enjoying the food. They're enjoying the completely over sensory thing that is going on in the mobile, and that is creating more and more issues. Right now, I have a 2-year-old niece who knows how to use a phone better than me. I feel like, because she knows everything, how to click a picture, and that means that we have overexposed them to social media, to internet, to
And that is
mobiles,
creating
yeah.
a lot of problems
Yes,
today because
definitely.
there's overload of information also,
Yes.
and you don't know what to pick up
Yes.
and what to utilize.
There should be clear rules set around that as well. You need to monitor what your kids are looking on online. Right now, gaming addiction, mobile addiction, internet addiction is on the rise, and it is not any different than drug addiction or alcohol addiction.
True.
And we need to treat it as seriously as we would treat alcohol addiction. And we need to be very conscious about it. We need to make sure that we are having set screen time for children and we are abiding by it. I've seen parents who say that, okay, I give him only 1 hour of screen time. But
But it's
in
not so.
reality, it is never,
never so.
it is never put into action. It's always, okay, the child says 5 more minutes, mama. So then 5 more minutes are gone by.
That's the permissible
Yeah,
parent.
yes,
You're
yes,
spoiling the child.
Yes. You need to, when you've told them that it's 1 hour, you need to set that rule that, okay, 1 hour has finished, the decided time has finished, so we will keep it.
You know, I guess it's that little guilt that comes out of them because they're not
Yeah.
there with the child all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
So you give in to the child, but this
Yeah.
is actually hampering the child's growth and the
Definitely.
emotional growth that they require.
The
Yeah.
human touch is reducing from their life.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's a really huge question I would like to ask parents out there. Like, who do you want to raise your child? Like, do you want to raise your child yourself, or do you want social media, the society, the internet to raise your child? So always think about that before you expose them. to
Wonderful.
internet.
I'm so glad we had this conversation,
Yeah.
Akshita. And my dear audience, these are pearls of wisdom that have been sown here right now by Akshita. Parenting is of the essence today, and the right kind of parenting. I hope you listen to this conversation intently and pick up some of the cues that Akshita has set. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Kisko thank you all.
Thank you so much for having
Oh,
me. Yeah,
oh, we did
Ruko,
say that to
ruko,
one
हाँ.
another. Yeah, actually, okay.
Yeah, we'll
Oh
do
my
it.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a little worried I might just start coughing.
Yeah.
Akshita, thank you so much. God bless you. Once again, my dear audience, thank you so much for listening to us intently. God bless you.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope this conversation helps a lot of people and
I
people
hope so
take
too.
parenting more seriously.
I hope so
Thank
too.
you.